All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for our virtual workshop series, Circle Sessions. I'm Jasmine, and this is Sarah. We are the founders of Distant Connections, a creative campaign designed to connect others through creativity. Creating is a process, and when we connect with one another, we're all able to grow more as creatives and as individuals. Our goal for the Distant Connection Circle Sessions is to support our creatives by providing a space for our members, like Mia, to share their insights and push others to grow in their craft. So today we have Mia Kaylee. She's going to be leading this workshop on why social media is the best tool for creative individuals. Mia is a writer based in Tilburg, Netherlands, and she's also one of the season 2 collaborators. So be sure to follow Distant Connections to check out her collab with her partner later in the season. Before we get started, I see that we have a couple of new faces, so I'd love for everyone to just shout out their name and where they're calling in from. And I can get started. I'm Jazz from Bowie, Maryland. We have Erin from Virginia Beach. Sarah's calling in from South Carolina. Bianca's calling in from Michigan.
There's also Ariana from Slovenia. That's cool.
Nice. Robin from France. Awesome. Like all the global I can't think of the word, I'm sorry. But we're all calling in from a bunch of places. I love to see it. We're gonna get started soon. So I just want to remind everyone, I see everyone's got their microphones on mute, but throughout the presentation, if we can just maintain that for Mia so that she's able to give her presentation with no interruptions. Throughout the presentation, if she allows for us to answer any questions or do any polls, of course, then we can unmute our mics if she allows. And we'll always have space open for questions at the end of the presentation. So looking forward to that. But make sure you're taking notes because this is a very necessary presentation that I'm sure we're all going to learn so many things from, but gonna give it to me to take it away.
Hey guys. Okay, well, I'm going to introduce myself in just a second, but I do want to say that if you feel comfortable, definitely you can turn your camera on just so it's a bit of a more welcoming environment. But of course, I don't want it to be like one of your university classes or something where you feel uncomfortable, so that's also fine. Sarah, Jazz, can you pull up the presentation, please? Exciting. Okay, here we go. Okay, so basically, if you are unfamiliar with me, I will kind of just go into that in a little bit more detail. But basically today, I just want to discuss why and how social media can be the best tool for creatives. There is a very big perception that social media and social media platforms can be fake. And we hear a lot of the negative consequences and side effects. And I think that this has now kind of been sort of reiterated with the Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma. And this is something that I want to touch upon because I want to say that there is also very positive sides to social media, and there is a lot of autonomy in social media that I think many people don't recognize. Okay, so who am I? Firstly, my name is Mia. I am 23 years old and I am South African, but I live and study in the Netherlands. My creative disciplines include creative direction. I also do media strategy. So like for campaigns, I will plan out how something will look. I have to do research on hashtags for companies or for my own, like what I do in terms of blogging. And I also am very fond of writing, and that's mainly in the form of poetry and short stories. On my university campus, I am part of an underground creative society called Refill, and that's basically just a poetry community. And I'm also one of the founders of Cappuccino Zine. And this is a quarantine project that I recently started in the beginning of this year. So you can see here in this like little picture, there's a couple of people and there's me in a coffee cup. And what's interesting is that two of the people in this picture are actually in this call right now. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because I also want to touch base with you guys on how networking with creatives can really help you grow as an individual and also as someone who might want to start a business or someone who wants to just grow creatively and explore talents. Most of the people in this picture I have never met in my entire life, but because of social media, I have managed to connect with them, and some of them are now my colleagues and even best friends. The last point that I want to touch up on is that I'm also a blogger. So I focus on environmentally friendly living, but I also touch upon social issues and social justice, like the systems and how that works. But there's also another side of me that people don't really see on social media. And this is the side that's like, okay, but who are you aside from the person that you're projecting online? I am a full-time student. This means I worry a lot about deadlines, about assignments, but you will never see me really posting about that on what I do on Instagram, for example, because it's not part of my niche. And that's something that I will go into a little bit later. I am a one more episode kind of gal, which means I tend to procrastinate a lot, preferably with a jar of jalapenos, as you can see pictured on the left. I'm incredibly clumsy, as you can see me so graciously leaning on the steps on the right. And I'm scared of thunderstorms, and that is still something that I carry with me since I was like 6 years old. But these are things that I don't necessarily share on social media, and that's because it might not be part of the story that I'm trying to tell. And that's basically what this workshop is about today. The story that you are trying to tell on social media with your Instagram page, with your business, with your photography, your poetry, whatever it can be. I want to explore how you started doing that, why you started doing that, and why you think it's important to post in a virtual space. So the next question is, and if you can, or if you'd like to, post in the chat or even answer it just by turning your camera on or like just unmuting yourself, whatever. Why are you here? Like, what made you take time out of your day? Did you come here to learn something? Were you just curious to get a couple of tips? Like, anything goes. If you don't feel comfortable answering, that's also fine, and we can move on to the next thing, because there will be a session, like a little Q&A session at the end of this presentation. So feel free to ask any questions then, or just to answer some of the questions here. Okay, so Aaron says he thinks that social media is such a powerful tool. Always love hearing new perspectives. Yeah, I think so too, and especially with a global platform, you know, social media, the internet even is such a vast, expansive space, and hearing new perspectives is very interesting, and also allows you to kind of think about what it is that you're doing. You might be doing the exact same thing as someone else, but you can always do it in your own way. And hearing new perspectives, I personally find enjoyable because that's something that I draw inspiration from. Yeah, exactly. Sarah or Jazz, can you go to the next slide, please? Robin says, because I still struggle to find topics I want to share, I'm fond of a lot of things. Okay, yeah, I can see that, because same with me, I'm also fond of a lot of things, and I think that's one of the reasons why people find it so important to have a niche on social media. You know, when you go to someone's account, you can identify whether they're into traveling, whether they're into fashion. So it's quite interesting, and we'll definitely get into that. The next question I would like to ask you guys is, what is your creative discipline? Do you consider yourself to be a photographer, a writer? What do you do? What do you think is creative for you? Someone could be like, I know some people who don't really consider that, or who don't think that they are creative, but if you are creating a space for yourself on social media, I think every process of that is a creative thing within itself. Like I know some people in here have their own businesses, and you might not necessarily think that you are a creative by, like, I don't know, means of art or anything, but the process itself is still a very creative strategy, because you're trying to get people to buy your product, or because you're trying to share your experience. So I think that that's important to note as well. Okay, creative producer, fashion, content creator, illustrator, writer, now into animation. Okay, someone's got a full resume. That's really cool. Photography, writing, poetry, sorry, cinema, drawing, graphic design. Okay, there's definitely like a variety, so that's really interesting for me to note personally. Yeah. Okay, I'd like to discuss the impact of your social media, and this is something that might take some time, but I'm going to go over it as in depth but as briefly as I can so we don't take up too much of your time. The main takeaway point that I really want everyone to really listen and take away from this is that you don't have to be an influencer to have influence. And this can be for any sort of platform that you currently have. So, for example, like fashion or content creating or photography or whatever it is that you're doing, you don't have to have a massive audience for people to actually care about what it is that you do, because this goes directly into vanity metrics. And vanity metrics essentially just ties into the number of likes that you get and comments. They're kind of like an iceberg, you know, on the top you just see all the pretty things, the pictures, the likes. And I think a lot of people tend to compare themselves, no matter which creative field you are in. If you are a photographer, and you see a concept that you really like, and you see someone else doing that exact same thing, you might be like, oh my God, I'm not as good as that person, because they might have certain resources that I don't, or other people might be expressing more interest in their picture when I had the exact same concept. And this is something that is so easily overlooked, because while I do want to say that Instagram, for example, can be a really positive platform, vanity metrics are incredibly easy to manipulate. People buy followers all the time, they buy likes all the time, there are engagement groups on Instagram to boost posts. Like, the things that you're seeing may not necessarily always be realistic. Instead, you can kind of see how much people care about the things that you're posting by looking at saves or shares. This is especially true if you have a business or a creator account on Instagram. And I just really want to touch upon this because social media is a very, very big comparison game. And there's a lot of self-limiting beliefs that come with that. You know, when people start things, okay, well, I should probably preface this with saying that there are different kinds of users on social media. So you have people that lurk, okay? You have people that don't ever like post anything, but they just lurk pages and that's it. Then you have people who mindlessly scroll and they like, but they're not really engaging with your content. That's why I'm saying vanity metrics don't matter, because people, and you probably do it too, like you'll just open Instagram in the morning, whatever, you'll scroll, you'll double tap, you'll move on with your day. You don't give it a second thought. So that's something I want you to really pay attention to. With self-limiting beliefs though, I think when people first start something, or when you share something that means a lot to you, you know, like your poetry, which might be incredibly personal, but you finally found the courage to share that online, you might be like, oh my God, why is no one paying attention to me? Or like, my poetry might not be good enough, or there are other accounts that are so much bigger. So why is anyone going to listen to me? Or why do they care what I have to say? And self-limiting beliefs can be so, so dangerous, because if you do not believe in yourself, no one else will. And this might be a very hard and like blunt truth, but that's it. If you do not believe in yourself, no one else will. And that confidence is something that you have to nurture and build, and it comes with just going for it. You are never going to be ready for any of the things you want to do. Like, how many times have you been like, okay, I need to get in shape because of like summer, or because of after quarantine or whatever, but you don't feel like doing that workout, you know? Like, social media is exactly the same with that context. You're never going to be ready to truly do the things that you want to do, but just starting is what is going to make you great. The problem with starting though is that we all tend to procrastinate. And I think with procrastination, you are kind of setting yourself back a little bit. But of course, we should keep in mind that people procrastinate for different reasons. The thing about procrastination is no one wants to just be mediocre, you know, like, especially as a creative, I think that there are many people who want others to know what it is that they're doing. If you're posting it online, there's a reason for that, because you want people to see what you have created, what you've designed, what you've made, what you've produced. You want people to have an interest in that. The thing is, with procrastination, it can be really difficult to sometimes start that because of the self-limiting beliefs. But the easiest thing for you to do is really to just kind of brainstorm, make a list of ideas that you have, and actually take action. Because if you don't, that's always going to be an idea, and you're always going to wonder what happened, like what could have happened, and it's never going to be something that actually really comes from it. But if something does come from it, I want to ask, what is your product? So I see some of you have mentioned a couple of things here. So for example, Aaron says that he's created content, like he's a content creator. So Aaron, if you don't mind, what kind of content do you create? And then also with Robin, photography, cinema, drawing, graphic design. I've seen some of Robin's stuff as well. So I think these kinds of things are really important to note in terms of like products. Okay. So like in terms of products, everyone is producing something online. So you have to ask yourself, what is my product? What am I making? And what do I want other people to take away from this? The most important thing and the most valuable advice that I can give you is that you need to know that resources are abundant. You don't need money to start something. And I know you might disagree with that because it's like, oh, everyone needs money to do something. And while this can be true, I think not having a certain equipment or tool or whatever can really push you to be more creative in ways that you might not even imagine possible. Where I am from in South Africa, we have a lot of street artists who create beadwork, or they make things from tires, for example. And if I see a tire, I might be like, I mean car tires, by the way. If I see a tire, I might think to myself, okay, that's just a tire, like what can I do with that? But people create sculptures from it, they create necklaces, they create designs. When you do not have access to certain things, you are forced to become creative because you want that idea to succeed. You want that thing to succeed. So in order to continue this idea of success that you've kind of set up for yourself, you need to provide value. So no matter what it is that you are creating, I would really strongly suggest that you provide value to your audience, because a lot of the times when people are interested in growing on social media, especially, they have a bunch of really cool pictures. And this is nice, this is great. Like your iced coffee might look awesome, your breakfast might look amazing, but what can other people take away from that? Especially as a creative or as someone who might want to essentially monetize your platform. Or if you are a photographer or artist, you want to start selling your prints, for example. So you need to provide value, and that can come in the means through freebies, for example. You can have a free workshop like this one. You can create an ebook that people can take something away from. There's a lot of ways to provide value so that when you do start offering something that people can pay for, they'll know that it's good because your free stuff is already like top notch, if that makes sense. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Another question is, how is your relationship with social media now compared to when you first joined? For me, it was really negative when I first started. I think compared to most of my friends, I joined quite late. I joined, I believe, in 2017 on Instagram. And I remember I was just like, this is not for me. Like I joined and everyone was just sharing pictures of their Yeezy shoes, and all the girls looked like tall and skinny and blonde, and everyone was just talking about Jay Alvarez and Alexis Ren, and I was just like, I don't look like these people and I don't have these things. So it was almost like a platform to kind of just show off. But I realized that social media has a ton of autonomy. You choose who to follow, you choose what to put out there, you choose what to share. So personally, I think the idea of social media being fake really depends on how you use it. I think it can be negative, but I also think that there's a lot of positives to it, depending on who you choose to engage with and what you choose to do with the platform. Because my relationship with social media completely changed after I just decided to kind of unfollow a bunch of people who weren't making me happy. Or like, I know that some people in this group or this call even, you're probably following people that you don't really like or that you don't really want to engage with, but you know them from a high school course or a sports group or an after school club activity or something. So you might feel guilty for unfollowing them, but their content doesn't really do anything to make you feel positive or inspired. And that's okay, because of course you don't constantly need that either, but it can impact your relationship with social media. So maybe that's just food for thought. Okay, Jasmine says she wasn't as focused on creating meaningful content when she first joined. I was only really focused on sharing with my friends and family. Okay. Ariana says, I try to use more to learn new things now, and I follow people that inspire and motivate me. Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. I think once you kind of realize that you do have the power to control social media in a way that benefits you, it really changes your whole perception. then I asked this before, but I kind of want to go more into it. So I asked if you have a product. And the reason why I'm asking this is because I want to know what it is that you are creating. So a product isn't always visible. For musicians, a product can be a sound. For some people, like I think it was Bianca who said she's into fashion. I know that Bianca is currently launching her own business. And that can be an experience. You know, you're giving people a shopping experience compared to a bunch of other boutiques or whatever, or even with music, if you have a song, you're putting people in a specific mindset. Different songs, like if you listen to songs, you know that this genre is going to make you feel this way. So it might not be a product that is tangible. It can be an experience, it can be an emotion, and the product can even be yourself. If you are not selling something, if you are not creating something, but you are still putting yourself out there on social media, you become the product. This is something that is quite important because, as you can see in the presentation, I have a blog and that is my product. My words on my product, my reviews, the things that I do, everything, that is something that I create. It's not tangible, but it's something that other people can see compared to music, which may come in a more tangible form, like a CD or a vinyl, or photography, which might get blown up into a print or something. But if you do not have a product, then, like I said before, you are the product, and that can come in a variety of ways of how you act on social media, how you're monetizing your platform if you are, and just how you portray yourself in general. Okay, so this one is quite a fun slide for me personally. I want to ask you, what is the impact that you hope to make? And you might be wondering, okay, but why is there like some random person's arm? And this is because I want to ask you, what meaning are you giving to the impact? Like why should people care about what you do? And this goes back into what I spoke about earlier in terms of self-limiting beliefs and having to kind of have that positive reinforcement of, I can do this. But people are always going to ask, what meaning is this? Why should I care? So for me, I want people to take away from the fact that my platform is all about sustainable living and being eco-friendly. And other people might not be able to relate to that, and that's fine because they're not my target audience. But meaning making is very important because meaning is everything for humans. You know, we attach meaning to so many things. A Bible, for example, is just a book. And you might be like, what? But if you really think about it, a Bible is a book. A school is the same kind of building as a hospital, but we give these things meaning. We give power to them. So a common way of thinking about this would be through a tattoo. Some of you may have tattoos. Some of you may know people who have tattoos. And you'll often hear people ask, okay, does that tattoo mean anything? On this presentation slide, this random arm was my friend who went to a party, and he was going to get this smiley face right here tattooed onto him. But he was a little intoxicated, so it didn't really happen. And he was also like quite scared of needles, which is an interesting coincidence. So that was supposed to happen to that. Now, when people ask him like what happened, he has to tell that story. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because that doesn't mean anything. This tattoo doesn't mean anything. It just means he was having a good time. But if you are establishing a brand or an identity or an online presence, there is going to be some meaning behind it, and that usually ties directly into your values. So what you stand for will always show on your social media platforms. And I think we can see this in terms of so many things that happening throughout this year especially. So for example, there was a lot of uproar when some people weren't posting the Black Square during the Black Lives Matter this past summer. It's like, okay, so you don't support Black people. You know, that was a big deal on social media. You kind of establish your values and what you do and who you stand for and what you stand for by the things that you say and what you don't do, and people pay close attention to that, and that can directly impact your brand identity. So your brand identity can be a bunch of different things. It can be the tone of voice you choose to use. Some people are very like out there, some people are more friendly or reserved, some people are just, they have their own way of speaking. Some people use color schemes to really connect their brand with their audience, or just to kind of distinguish themselves from other brands. So anything that goes into having a brand identity is how you're going to set yourself apart. And whether or not you know it or have been creating a brand online, you are probably building something already. If you are in this call, you probably already have a product or a creative outlet that you are working on. And this can easily be developed into a brand depending on your niche. And a niche is quite an important thing to have, because if you don't have like a very specific thing that you're focusing on, people are going to lose touch with you. They're going to lose touch with what it is that you're trying to build, and they're not going to be able to connect with you. And I think for any creative person, that might not be the experience that you want. You want people to be able to connect with you, not only because of the products that you're creating, but maybe even because of the kind of person that you are. And the reason why I bring up a niche and why I think it's so important is because, for example, if I don't know, a travel account, for example, people are going to follow me because they're interested in traveling. They like my travel pictures. But if I suddenly start posting a bunch of things about puppies and cruelty-free makeup, for example, I'm going to start losing followers because they didn't follow me for that. They followed me for my travel content. So the impact that you're trying to make, or that I guess you're hoping to make really needs to align with the niche that you're creating for yourself. Next, I want to discuss resources. And like I said before, you don't need to have all of the resources at hand. You really just need passion and determination, and you need to start. That's the most important thing. The worst thing that you can do for yourself is sleep on an idea that is reoccurring constantly. If you've been thinking about writing a book, but you have no idea how to start it or how to do it, you do not have any excuse. The internet is a vast, expansive place. You can Google how to do it, and someone online will teach you. We are so lucky to have access to a platform like the internet. Like nowadays, I think people are creating so much. There are so many people, and so many like people in their 20s making millions from like a Vine they did a couple of years back. So I think that anything that you do, you really just need to see it through. It's really easy to give up. It's really easy to lose passion, to lose motivation. And it's incredibly easy to fail. Like, no one likes to admit it, but it's easier to fail than it is to succeed. But the thing is, every time you fail, you're learning. So you need to keep learning. You need to keep failing if you want to reach a level of success, because it's only through those failures that you are really going to be able to do something and become the version of yourself or the creative that you want to be. These resources can be money. That's probably one of the biggest things for creatives, especially in art forms. Like, art things can be very expensive. Same with equipment. I know that money is a very big resource, but I think people kind of forget that other people are resources too. Good manners and gratitude will take you further than money ever could. If you know people and you are able to connect with them in a way that doesn't kind of come across as like, oh, I only need you for this project, then you are really onto something there. This is something that I kind of discovered myself this past year with the magazine that I started. It was a quarantine project, and it was something that I've been wanting to do for so long, and that was an idea that I was sleeping on for a really long time. But I remembered some of my friends, and I just texted them, like, I was like, hey, I have an idea for a magazine, are you in? And now we have a team, and now we have people, and we produced our first issue, and it was great. I've learned a lot. I've definitely made a ton of mistakes, but these are all things that I can learn and use and make issue 2 even better. So that's really why networking and connections are so important. Everyone in this call is a potential resource, for example, and it doesn't matter where people are, because you can still reach out to them and create something digitally. For example, I recently did a collaboration through Distant Connections with someone in New York, and I've never met this guy, and we were planning to do like a little photo shoot, and I was getting dressed, and like we were coming up with our concept. And I was just like awkwardly posing in front of my camera because I was like, oh my God, this is kind of weird. I don't know this person at all. But you know, like this is how you grow. You get out of your comfort zone. And it's so important to get out of your comfort zone. And it's even more important to just get out of your damn head. You're so busy worrying about what are they going to say? What are my parents going to think? What are kids from school going to think? That if you're constantly letting other people's opinions influence you, you're not going to have your own opinion. And you don't want to reach a stage where you're just like, fuck, like I really should have done something with my life at that point, or I should have gone for that idea. The reason why people kind of chase these creative ideas, I think, at least for me and my personal experience, is because people don't want to get stuck doing something that they hate. I think for our generation, people really dislike the idea of having a 9 to 5 because they want to be their own boss. And our generation is very ambitious. You see a ton of 20-year-olds hitting like the under 30 list on Forbes. And it's very easy to get caught up in this idea of success and thinking that you have to be a millionaire before the age of 30, or that you should have your whole life together at 20. It's unrealistic. It really is. You need to have patience, and you need to think about what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it in order to really go for the thing that you want most. Which is why I want to touch upon the fact that everything you're putting online is a story, and it doesn't have to be a fake story. Like I said before, I have two versions of myself. One is the one that I post, and one is the one that I don't post. Neither of them are fake. Both of those versions are me. But because I'm doing the thing that is more aesthetically pleasing, people might assume that I am a fake person because of the things that I'm posting. I like the aesthetic of having pinks and whites on my feed, for example. But obviously, like, my entire life isn't just like, I don't know, I'm not really seeing it through rose-colored glasses, you know? Everyone, if you're sharing something, you're probably sharing the best versions of that particular thing, but it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. So I don't really see why it can be fake, but of course, that's a whole different thing that we can go into. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that social media is really what you make it. It's a creative tool, and you need to learn how to use it, and you can optimize the way that you connect with people and why you connect with people to do so. Okay, then one of the other points I wanted to touch upon is that people create art about things that inspire them, but they rarely realize that they are an inspiration too. If you are a writer, you probably write about a lot of things. You probably don't write about yourself that often. If you're a photographer, you probably photograph other people more than you take pictures of yourself. I mean, it would probably feel kind of like narcissistic just writing poems about yourself. I totally get that. But at the same time, when you don't have inspiration, I think that you need to look at some of the past projects you've been involved in, or things that you've done, because you've done that. Like, you are an inspiration to others, whether or not you know that. And that's just something I really, really want to kind of put out there, is that you don't have to look for things that inspire you. Some of the things that you've done, other people are amazed by, but they'll never tell you that, because it's just kind of how our society is, which can be very unfortunate. Most of the support that we get often comes from our friends and family. And if you're a creative, it might come from your Insta best friends, for example, who you've never even met. The people closest to us don't really kind of give us the validation that we seek. And that can be a really tough thing, I think, especially if you are creating something and you want your friends to be as hyped about it as you are. The reason why they probably might not be is because they're not your target audience. Your family is always going to tell you that something that you do is good and that they're proud of you, and that's great. But if you're trying to make money, they're probably not going to be the ones to kind of keep buying from you, you know? And that's an okay thing to start to accept. It's also a difficult thing to accept, but that's definitely something you have to realize. Okay, so we're kind of closing down like the presentation and getting to the last couple of slides, but I want to leave you guys with 3 action steps. If you want to optimize your social media in terms of growth or connecting with other people, I want you to analyze your profiles. What are some things that you really like? What are some things that you don't like about your profile? Why is it that you don't like that? Have you found ways to be more creative? Is there a project that you did a couple of years back that you can maybe update in some way now? I want you to brainstorm ideas and think about the things that you can do with what you have. Don't put self-limiting beliefs in yourself. Don't say, oh, I can't make this because I don't have that. Just start doing something, and I promise you it's going to come out so much greater than you imagine, and you will be proud of it, because it is an experience that you have to go through, and learning these skills now while you don't have the equipment or maybe even the correct tools will really kind of, how do I put this? Basically, just later on, I think you will be really thankful for it, because not having certain things teaches you how to fight for them. And this is something that you kind of have to go through. So you need to learn how to act on your ideas. And this can be through just making a list of the ideas that you have, and just picking it out day by day, like what it is that you want to work on. I'm not saying you have to create something every single day, but I do think that it's important to look at what it is that you're inspired by. Pay attention to the thoughts that you have. Like, some of you might be like thinking about something that you want to keep doing. You might want to think about a project, or you've thought about an idea, but you've never acted on it. And I really want to urge you to think about why you haven't done it, and try and go for it in smaller steps. That was pretty much the presentation. Firstly, thank you so much for sticking around for this long and paying attention. You're welcome to connect with me on Instagram, shameless self-promo, also my website, another shameless self-promo. But if you'd like to collaborate with me, you can shoot me an email and we can come up with something. Thanks again. Yeah, I like this a lot.
So good, so good. Love that.
Amazing. Wow. So good. I literally was taking notes on my phone. Like,
I sure was too.
so yes, ma'am. Amazing. Thank you so much, Mia. So now we'll definitely move over to the Q&A portion. And so definitely, if you have any questions, start thinking of them and put them in the chat right now. So we're gonna get right into it. Yes, we'll also share the socials. Thanks, Erin.
Sorry, something that I forgot to add was when you guys registered for the workshop, I got your emails as well. And everyone that attended, I'm going to give you kind of like a breakthrough, or like, I guess more of a breakdown on how you can optimize your social media so that it can be seen by other people. So if you're curious about that or have any questions about that, definitely stick around for the Q&A session, and also check your inbox, because I'll try and share that today or tomorrow. I'll send it to either Jazz or Sarah and they'll share it with you guys. So check spam too.
Yes.
You'll also get the recording from this presentation too, because I know I'm going to need to listen to this again and again, because I got so many good things this time, and I know that next time around I'm going to get even some more.
Yes, man. Oh my gosh, that was awesome. Okay, so just to kick it off, what I know, so you talked about resources, and that it's up to you to go ahead and search for those resources. The internet and the world is your, just plethora of ways to go about finding what you need. So for you, how did you start out? Can you give us some resources?
So I have a couple of things that I like to do. I'm sure most of us here are quite visual people. I like to search on Pinterest. And I think if you are someone that is if you're trying to find new ideas, for example, on how to do something, if you type in what it is that you're fascinated by, Google and Pinterest tend to autofill things for you. And those are the things that are the most searched right now. So if you are a business and you are trying to optimize your social media, and for example, one person mentioned that they're interested in fashion, if you just type in fashion into Pinterest, you will see a list of things that are autofilled. And those things are the things that other people are interested in. So you can look for ways to create new content from that, because that's what's trending. And I think it's important to keep up with that from time to time, because if you are creating something that people aren't interested in, obviously they're not going to pay attention. So Pinterest is a big one for me. I also like to use We Heart It, and I'm still on Tumblr. I don't care what anyone says. I like to use it as like a mood board, because you can find very aesthetic images on there. Then there's also YouTube. So depending on what I like, same with the whole autofill thing for Pinterest and Google, I will type in like a keyword. For me, that's usually anything related to room decor or sustainability or photography tips. And I'll just get a bunch of suggestions. And I just kind of browse through and see whichever thumbnail looks the most appealing. So those are usually the sources that I like. But sometimes I kind of, Bianca says, I love Tumblr still too. Yeah, I don't know. It's one of my favorite sites. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I like to look at past projects I've done, and those are things that I'm like, oh, that actually wasn't as good as I thought. And I think a lot of people can be kind of harsh on themselves for that, because it was when you first started. No one is great from the beginning. It's how you learn. So when I'm losing inspiration, I look at past stuff that I've done and I try to recreate it with the knowledge that I have now.
Very good. Thank you. That's all
I have
good.
a question. Yeah, I'm curious. I know that, social media is so important to really learn how we're going to continue to utilize it moving forward in our lives. Like, you just cannot get around it. And seeing how you've, been able to do things like Cappuccino Zine and blog and different things to boost your social media. I'm curious, what's the future for you, specifically with Cappuccino Zine and with your blog, and what do you see, for your future? What's the vision for that?
It's quite difficult to just, well, firstly, Cappuccino Zine was never I never planned to monetize it. And I think, when people start doing stuff like this and you start connecting with a lot of people want to get paid. You want to get rewarded for the work that you're putting in, for the hours you're putting in, and that's only natural. With the Cappuccino magazine, it's mostly a creative outlet for me. We are in the process of rebranding, so that's something that I'm not giving too much thought of, because it's been a hobby for such a long time, but I would like to elevate it so that I can help other people in terms of resources like networking, how to do that, how to connect with other people, and how to collaborate with other people through it, just guides and stuff like that. But for my own blog, this is probably the first year I've really taken it seriously. Like, before I wasn't. It was cool. Like, I was like, oh, little review about this, I don't know, cruelty-free eyeshadow palette. And now I've started like pitching myself to brands. So it's something that I would like to continue doing, but my intention, I don't even know if this is like fine to say, but my intention is never to grow on social media. I like the idea of growing as a person and growing with other people, collaborating with other people, and maybe companies and brands. Like, I've been doing that and it's appealing. But I freak out when I get new followers, which might be weird to say because I'm like only at 2K or whatever, but I freak out when I get new followers. I'm like, oh my God, is that another person? And sometimes I go to my profile to see what they see after they follow me. And I'm sure I'm not the only one, so I feel like that's fine to say. Or like, I'll go to their profile and I'm just like, who are you? How'd you find me? It makes me curious. I like to connect with people. But for my own personal platform, I just really want to share information that is appealing to me and what I think that people might be interested in. For example, which is why I use the Pinterest autofill tool so often, or like the Google search thing, because that's what's trending and that's what people are curious about learning. So yeah, I really just want to be like a resource hub, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I feel pretty much the same way as far as like, I'm continuing to find new ways to grow and connect with people. And generally, I think that does make you a better person, a more well-rounded person. And you learn a lot more things and you can be useful in a lot more ways that way. So that's really good.
Very good. So we got another question in the chat from Christina. How do you find balance between spending time on and off social media, especially as someone who creates content and needs to be consistent?
Girl, I have my days. Like, there are some days where I'm just like, I don't feel like doing this. I recently had to do this. I got a brand offer and we had agreed to do something for a matter of days. And some days I'm just like, you know what? I don't feel like doing this. And then I have to force myself. And I think the moment that you start forcing yourself to do something, it's no longer fun. No matter how creative it is, no matter how much time you enjoy doing it. Like, if you are taking pictures and you're like forcing yourself to get out of an unmotivated or uninspired rut, forcing yourself to take pictures is not, like, you're not having a good time. And that's what it's supposed to be about. Creating is supposed to be about having a good time. So for me, finding a balance, I really try to stay off my phone in the mornings unless I have a campaign coming up. I find that time to be sacred almost. It's really important for me to not be on social media from the moment that I wake up to the moment that I go to bed. I tend to typically batch create content, and usually those days for me include Sundays and Tuesdays. So for example, on Sunday, I might take a bunch of pictures outside and have different outfits, and like on Tuesdays, I would have a couple of reel ideas or IGTVs that I might plan on posting, and I'll just record them. Then on a Friday or a Monday, I might edit some of the pictures or edit some of the videos so that I can kind of pace myself. A lot of the pictures that people are currently seeing on my feed, I've taken a couple months back, or that I've batch created like maybe last year. But that can be difficult to do, especially if you are someone like me and you feel like you're constantly evolving. I don't want to sound like all spiritual and stuff like that, you know, like I'm about to sell you like turquoise jewelry or crystals, but I feel like if you're someone that constantly is like changing their appearance or experimenting, that might be more difficult to do in terms of batch creation, but you can always use that as a throwback Thursday. So yeah, I tend to batch create in conclusion.
Cool. Erin says, what's a recent collaboration with a brand you've done and maybe your favorite as well?
Okay, so how I collaborate with brands is quite, I guess, different to most people that other people may follow, or like that some of my friends even follow. I tend to stick to smaller brands that a lot of people don't know because I prefer to work local and ethically. And unfortunately, a lot of brands just aren't ethical, which is a shame. But let me pull this up. This feels so narcissistic to do, but I'm trying to think of like who I've worked with. So you kind of put me on the spot. Actually, I have two. There's an app called Dive Through, and it's a journaling app, and I've really liked working with them because it's fun to work with a brand that kind of shares the same values as you and who focuses and prioritizes mental health. I think in a time like this where everything is digital, it's really important to kind of make space for yourself and not have to overshare everything. I think when you're going outside and you see a pretty sunset, the first thing you're going to do is like, oh my God, look at the sunset. But you're not actually enjoying it. You're posting it so other people can see what you're seeing. But are you really seeing that? So that's some of the things that I kind of pay attention to whenever I'm outside. But that's not the question that you asked. So another brand that I have recently collaborated with is Domino's Pizza. That was bomb. Like I really like Domino's Pizza, so that was something that I thought was really interesting. And I mean, I got free food, so who doesn't like that?
Yes, definitely. He gives you some claps. He's giving you some props. Robin says, what is your views about following popular trends? I saw a lot of people starting off trends, then when they try to detach themselves to these trends, they seem to lose value for their followers / niche. Yeah, that's a loaded question.
I think it depends on the trend itself. It's a really it's a massive learning experience because trends can be tricky, especially if it's not something that you genuinely connect to. Like I wanted to do the Vogue challenge earlier this year. I just didn't get around to it because I actually just lost inspiration for it. So I just never went for it, but that was trending. And then you have TikTok, which is like, I don't know, TikTok was trending. And I was like, should I get a TikTok? But I'm not someone that's going to keep up with that and regularly create content for TikTok. So I just didn't. Yeah, I do think you have a point there when you say that people try to follow trends and then they start attaching themselves to these trends. I personally feel like it's because that's not something that they want to do. You're doing it because it's going viral, so you know that that's going to put you on the map. It's going to gain you visibility. It's going to gain you followers. But the problem with some trends is the fact that if they're not aligned with what you are doing, if they're not aligned with your niche, your brand identity, people are not going to pay attention to what you're actually creating because they want more of the same content. And if you're not doing like TikTok dances or I don't know, what was that I don't know, what was it called, like the Dalgona coffee thing, was that trend was called, I don't know. But if you're not constantly creating the same kind of content that people sign up to see, they're definitely going to lose interest, and that's why people lose followers. I recently learned this in a giveaway that I participated. Awesome giveaway, it was great, but it was not my niche. I gave away a drone, which was really, really cool. And I was like telling my friends, I was like, oh my God, you guys, I'm giving away a drone. And it was great, like it was cool, but I'm an eco-friendly niche. My followers don't care about a drone, you know? So it really has to align with what it is that you're doing. And that's why I'm saying that it's so important to kind of constantly reflect back on what it is that you stand for. I mean, a drone's cool, but it just doesn't align with what I post about on the daily. So yeah, that was a learning experience for me too.
Yeah, it's always good to have those learning experiences, see what's working. Sometimes it goes, through experience and experimenting on those things. So it's good that you learned. Now you know, don't give out a drone again. I'll take one though if you want. Anne says, he should have. Followed you earlier, huh? Alrighty, any other questions? Okay, Christina, that's another one. How do you decide on which brands to work with, and how did your Domino's Pizza collab come about?
It depends on the brand itself. I like to do research about who they are before I sign up for something. This is something I didn't always do, and that was in itself a learning experience for me. So whenever I get a collaboration, usually people email me and they'll be like, hey, I discovered your blog or I discovered your Instagram and I want you to promote this for me. And I'll give you X amount of money for a story post and an in-feed post, which is just like a post on your feed. Or I'll give you X amount of money if you post this reel or like a blog. And sometimes it can be unpaid. So they'll be like, hey, I don't have a lot of money or I don't have a marketing budget, but this is what I do and this is what I stand for. And this is the product that I would like you to advertise or the experience I'd like you to share. And depending on how they've pitched themselves to me, I kind of analyze their social media posts, like look at who they're following. I look at their websites, if they have anything about sustainability on them, if it shows anything that can be transparent. Because the thing is, every brand that I connect with has an influence on the audience that I am trying to kind of nurture. So it has to be aligned with what I'm doing. Because if someone asks me anything about the brand and I don't know that question, and it's such an important question that ties back to my niche, like I'm going to be the one that's going to get like slack for that, you know. The brand has like 1 million followers or they might have a couple thousand. They're not going to care that one person like gave the wrong information because it doesn't hurt their reputation. But because I am significantly smaller, it would hurt mine. So it's good for me to do my research about that. So yeah, I just kind of have a set criteria. Are they transparent about what they're doing? Do their values align with mine? Like, and I also look at for things like if they're female owned or if it's like during the Black Lives Matter movement, I was trying to support as many people of color as possible because COVID has unfortunately disproportionately impacted communities of color. So that was quite important to me personally. And then how did the Domino's Pizza collab come about? So in the Netherlands, we have, well, I mean, I'm sure like there's like worldwide agencies, but in the Netherlands, there's like a micro influencer agency. And every time there's an opportunity, they kind of just like mail me. And then I decide whether or not I want to accept it. So recently there was an advertisement for KFC and I told my friends about it and I was just like, oh my God, I'd love to like work with KFC, but I'm like, I'm vegetarian, so it goes against my brand. So you have to just analyze what it is that they're doing and why you're doing it. Yeah, I can't tell you too much about the Domino's thing because it's not been posted, so I'm sorry about that.
Good, yeah, keep up with the business ethics. Alrighty, awesome, thanks Mia. Alrighty, back to you, Jess.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for attending and thank you for hosting, Mia. This was really great. And of course, we want everyone to stay in touch, so stay tuned for an email that we're going to share the recording, a couple of the takeaways, and a little snapshot of the presentation. Just wanted to let you all know that, again, Distant Connections, you can follow us on Instagram for more updates and information for Mia's collab that she had did with Distant Connections and her partner. You can follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. We're on all socials. And our next circle session will actually be this upcoming Wednesday, November 18th at 7 p.m. Eastern. So stay tuned. But thank you again for joining, and we hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a good, I think for most of you, it's afternoon. Yeah.
Thanks again.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you too, Robin. Thank you, Bianca.